You are standing in the survival aisle at the outdoor store, credit card already halfway out of your wallet. There is a solar-powered emergency radio with a built-in flashlight, USB charger, hand crank, weather alerts, and what looks like a tiny coffee maker attached to the side. $49. It is screaming at you with shiny packaging and 5-star reviews from people who have never seen a real emergency in their lives. But let me ask you something. When the grid goes down, when supply chains collapse, when the scenario you have been quietly preparing for finally shows up at your door, do you want the thing that looks impressive or the thing that actually works? Here is what I know with absolute certainty after testing gear in field conditions where failure means something real. 99% of the survival gadget industry is selling you confidence wrapped in injection-molded plastic. They are selling the feeling of preparedness, not preparedness itself. And you, sitting there scrolling Amazon at midnight reading about the ultimate EDC combo kit, you already know something is off. Today, I am going to show you exactly why the gadget industry is your worst enemy when things fall apart, and I am going to hand you 8 tools. Real, tested, boring-looking, ugly tools that will outperform every flashy gimmick on the market. Not sponsored, not affiliated. Not one company paid me to say their name. This is what survives when the fantasy ends and the math starts. If you are part of the 1% who actually want the unglamorous truth about preparedness, hit subscribe. Drop a comment below telling me the most useless survival gadget you have ever bought. We have all been there. Let's get tactical, now. The gadget industry has a formula, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. They take one functional concept, water filtration, fire starting, navigation, and they bolt 11 additional features onto it that each individually perform at maybe 30% of what a dedicated tool would do. Then they package the whole mess in a housing that looks military grade because it has a camouflage print on it. Camouflage print is not a ballistic rating, it is a paint job. Here is the physics lesson they skipped in the marketing meeting. Every time you add a function to a tool, you introduce a new failure point. A knife with a built-in compass, fire starter, whistle, and glass breaker has 5 mechanisms that can fail before the knife even cuts anything. A fixed blade knife has one. Guess which one works in 36-degree rain when your hands are shaking? So let's talk about what actually works. Tool number 1. A Full-tang fixed blade knife. Not a folding knife. Not a multi-tool knife. Not a knife with a saw on the spine and a bottle opener on the handle. A Full-tang fixed blade with a 4 to 6 inch blade, where the steel runs the entire length of the tool in one single unbroken piece from tip to handle. Here is what Full-tang means in the real world. It means the blade and the handle are the same piece of metal. You can baton through wood with it. You can pry with it. You can put your entire body weight on it, and it will not separate. A folding knife snaps at the pivot point. A partial tang knife snaps at the guard. Full-tang does not snap. The difference between those two outcomes is not comfort. It is function. While everyone else is duct taping their tactical folder back together, you are still cutting. Tool number 2. And this one kills me. How overlooked it is. A quality fixed-edge hand saw. Not a wire saw that comes in a credit card-sized pouch. Not a chainsaw in a can. A real, actual hand saw with hardened teeth and a blade long enough to cut through 6-inch timber in under a minute. Wire saws are a case study in survival mythology. They work great on YouTube thumbnails. They work approximately never when you are cold and dehydrated and need to process firewood fast enough to matter. Here is the logistics of why this matters. Firewood is not optional. Firewood is thermal regulation, water purification, food preparation, and psychological stability rolled into one resource. If you cannot process wood fast enough to maintain a fire, everything downstream collapses. A good handsaw with a 21-inch blade and bimetal hardened teeth will cut through a 4-inch branch in about 45 seconds. Run the numbers. In a 2-hour firewood gathering session, the difference between a wire saw and a real saw is the difference between a small warming fire and a sustainable camp that keeps you functional through the night. Tool number 3. A long-handle hatchet with a curved pole. Not a tactical tomahawk with a skull etched into the head. Not a folding camp axe that weighs more than a standard fixed one. A genuine hatchet, 15 to 18-inch handle length, head weight around 1.5 to 2 pounds, hickory or ash handle that absorbs shock instead of transmitting it up your arm for 6 hours straight. This tool is your force multiplier for wood processing, shelter building, light digging, and roughly 12 other applications your $49 multi-tool was supposed to cover, and does not. The hatchet and the hand saw are a system. The saw processes the log, the hatchet splits it. Together, they replace what most preppers spend $300 on in solar-powered equipment that cannot produce a single calorie of heat after the sun goes down. 1 pound of dry hardwood generates roughly 6,000 BTUs of heat energy when properly burned. You do not need technology to access that energy. You need a sharp hatchet and a person who knows how to use it. Tool number 4. Pay attention here because this one exposes an entire category of prepper mythology. A military surplus folding entrenching tool. Not a collapsible shovel with a compass handle and a saw blade spine, and a lifetime guarantee from a company that will not exist when you need them. A genuine military-issue tri-fold entrenching tool with a sharpened front edge and a locking mechanism that does not flex under load. Here's the scenario that makes this non-negotiable. You will need to dig. In a real survival situation, you will need to dig for more reasons than you have currently considered. Latrines, fire pits, drainage channels around your shelter to keep groundwater from flooding your sleeping area, roots for food, concealment positions if required. A folding entrenching tool addresses all of that and fits into a pack with room to spare. And that sharpened front edge? In a scenario where the hatchet is unavailable, it functions as a substitute for light chopping and prying. It is not elegant, but it works when it needs to. Tool number 5, a mechanical fire starter. Specifically, a ferro rod. Not a piezoelectric lighter with a USB charging port. Not a plasma arc lighter with a magnetic safety cap. A ferro rod, magnesium iron alloy, minimum length of 4 inches and minimum diameter of 1/2 inch, so there is actually enough material to use for more than a season. This tool will produce sparks at over 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It does not care about altitude, humidity, wind, or temperature. It does not run out of fuel. It does not need a charge. It works when it is wet, when you are wet, and when everything else is wet. Here is the chemical truth behind it. When you scrape a ferro rod with a hard steel spine, you are shearing microscopic particles of iron that instantly oxidize in contact with air. That oxidation releases enormous thermal energy in a fraction of a second. That is your ignition source. It requires no external energy input beyond the kinetic energy of your arm. Compare that to a piezo lighter. 1 circuit failure, 1 cracked housing from a drop, 1 wet afternoon, and you have 0 ignition. The ferro rod has been used in military survival kits for over a century. There is a reason it never got replaced. It is not nostalgia. It is physics that does not care about your battery percentage. Tool number 6, a stainless steel single-wall water bottle. Not a double-wall insulated tumbler with a bamboo lid and a lifetime warranty. Not a filtered bottle with a built-in UV purification light that requires a charge and will stop working the first time it takes a hard impact in the wrong place. A single-wall stainless steel container, wide mouth, minimum 1 liter capacity, no inner coating, no BPA-free plastic liner that becomes a concern the moment you expose it to heat. The single-wall steel bottle does something no other container does. You can put it directly in fire. That is the feature. Boiling water is your primary purification method in most field scenarios, and it works against every biological threat you are likely to encounter. 100 degrees Celsius for 1 minute kills everything that matters. No filter cartridge required, no UV battery required, no iodine tablets to run out of in the first week. Just fire and steel and time. 3 things that will still exist when civilization gets complicated. Double-wall insulated bottles cannot go in fire because the vacuum layer between walls will fail catastrophically. Plastic bottles cannot go in fire at all. Aluminum bottles with anodized coatings can leach compounds when heated past safe temperature thresholds. Stainless steel is the one material that handles direct flame without degrading or adding anything to your water. 1 tool, 0 moving parts, durability measured in decades. The gadget industry spent 20 years convincing you to pay $60 for a smart water bottle with a hydration reminder notification. The dumb bottle that costs $12 will outlast civilization. Tool number 7, a quality Scandi-grind fixed blade. If the Full-tang fixed blade from Tool 1 is your utility workhorse for heavy tasks, the Scandi-grind blade is your precision instrument for wood carving, trap building, gear fabrication, and everything in the craft and construct category that becomes more critical the longer a situation extends past the first week. These two blades together cover 90% of your cutting needs across the full spectrum of survival scenarios, with zero overlap and zero redundancy. Here is the geometry lesson. A Scandi-grind, that flat-angled single bevel running from the spine down to the edge, is the easiest blade geometry to maintain in the field with basic sharpening tools. You do not need a sharpening rig. You do not need angle guides. Flat on the stone, 3 strokes per side. You have a working edge again. Contrast that with a hollow grind blade, which requires a specific radius to sharpen correctly, or a serrated edge, which requires a round rod and patience you will not have when you are on hour 14 of a bad day. The Scandi is not fancy. It is maintainable. Maintainable beats impressive every time reality shows up uninvited. And here is the dark truth about blade quality that will save you from a category of expensive mistakes. A $10 Scandinavian-style knife with laminated carbon steel will hold an edge longer in field use than a $40 assisted opening folder with a high-carbon stainless stamp that tells you nothing useful without the actual Rockwell hardness rating. Hardness matters. Steel composition matters. The brand name on the box matters approximately 0. Buy for metallurgy and geometry. Let everyone else buy for marketing. Tool number 8, the one that surprises people most and probably should not. A waterproof notepad and a pencil. Not a phone, not a tablet, not an e-reader loaded with survival PDFs that requires a charge and stops functioning in temperatures below freezing. Waterproof paper and a graphite writing instrument. 2 items. $3 total. More survival value than 90% of what gets sold in the preparedness space. Here is why this wins. Information is the most perishable resource in a collapse scenario. Every water source you identify, every route you scout, every quantity of supplies you catalog, every observation about patterns in the environment around your position. All of that data lives in your head right now, and your head is a terrible storage system under sustained stress. Sleep deprivation, dehydration, and elevated cortisol degrade memory recall faster than most people expect, and faster than you will notice it happening to you personally. Graphite on waterproof paper does not fail. It does not need power. It does not emit light signature at night. It does not create an electromagnetic signature that can be detected. Waterproof paper survives full submersion, rain, sweat, and being stuffed in the bottom of a boot for a week. A $3 notepad and a $2 pencil give you persistent, searchable, secure, intelligent storage that no device currently manufactured can match in a post-grid environment. The most advanced survival tool in your kit is the one that still works when everything else has failed. Pencil and paper have a failure rate of approximately 0. Now let me tell you what all 8 of these tools have in common, because the pattern matters more than the individual list. Every single one works without electricity. Every single one has one primary function it performs exceptionally well, rather than 8 functions it performs badly. Every single one can be maintained in the field with basic mechanical knowledge and materials found in the environment. And every single one costs less than $200 total for the entire set, often significantly less, putting the complete loadout below the price of one tactical gadget bundle you were about to put in your cart. Here's the uncomfortable math the gadget industry does not want you to run. The average prepper spends between $800 and $1,500 per year on gear. A significant portion of that goes to items with a shelf life measured in battery cycles and firmware updates. That solar-powered weather radio? The rechargeable cell inside it degrades to 60% capacity in approximately 2 years of regular cycling. In 5 years, it might not hold a charge through a single night. The Ferro rod you buy this week will still produce sparks for the rest of your life and your children's lives with 0 maintenance required. The math is not close. It is not even in the same category. And here is something most survival channels will not tell you because their sponsor agreements would not survive the conversation. The survival industry has a vested interest in keeping you slightly unprepared. Not completely unprepared, then you would have no reason to buy anything. Slightly unprepared. Perpetually one gadget away from being ready. They sell confidence, not capability. They sell the identity of a prepared person without delivering actual preparedness. Every time you buy another piece of kit, instead of developing a skill, you reinforce their business model and weaken yours. Here is your reconnaissance assignment, and I want you to do this before you spend another dollar on gear. Get out a notebook, paper, not an app, and write down 8 scenarios. Power outage lasting more than 72 hours. Water supply contamination event. Severe weather isolation for 1 week. Regional infrastructure failure. Mass evacuation scenario. Medical emergency without hospital access. Extended food supply disruption. Civil disorder in your immediate neighborhood. For each scenario, write down which of your current tools directly addresses that scenario's core functional requirement. Do not count gadgets you have not tested under stress. Do not count batteries you have not verified recently. Count only what you own, what you have used, and what you would trust with your life in the dark at the worst point of the worst week. The gaps in that list are your actual shopping list, and I promise you, those gaps will not be filled by the 5-in-1 survival tool on sale for $39.99 with free Prime shipping. They will be filled by the handsaw you keep not buying because it seems too simple, by the Ferro rod you keep skipping because you already own a lighter, by the waterproof notepad you dismiss because your phone has a notes app. Simple tools solving real problems. That is the entire game. Everyone else is playing a different version of this game and losing it at the exact moment it counts. Here is what actually happens when things go wrong. It is not the dramatic Hollywood-style collapse where everyone simultaneously understands civilization is ending. It is a Tuesday. It is a week of cascading failures that did not feel catastrophic until day 4. The power goes out, grocery stores clear in 48 hours, water pressure drops on day 5, and the generator next door runs out of fuel on day 6. By the time most people recognize the pattern, the people with simple functional tools are already solving problems, and the people with sophisticated gadgets are reading instruction manuals by candlelight. That is not an insult. That is the documented behavioral pattern from every documented infrastructure failure in the last 40 years. You will not have time to learn your gear when you need it. You need to have used these tools in low-stakes conditions before high-stakes conditions arrive. Take the hatchet out this weekend and process wood for 2 hours until you understand how fatigue changes your grip and your angles. Boil water in your steel bottle over a backyard fire and understand exactly how long it takes to reach a full boil in different wind conditions. Fill 3 pages of your waterproof notepad with detailed notes about your neighborhood. Water sources, storage facilities, structural resources, traffic patterns, population density estimates. Start a fire with your Ferro rod in a controlled setting. Not once. 20 times, until your hands know the motion without your conscious mind supervising every step. That gap between performing a skill once and performing it automatically under stress, that is the gap between surviving and not surviving. No gadget closes that gap. Only repetition closes that gap. And here is the dark truth I promised at the start. These 8 tools do not make you safe. Nothing makes you safe. They give you better odds. They give you agency when systems fail around you. They give you practical capability in the moments where practical capability is the only currency that means anything. But luck still factors in. Community still matters more than any individual tool list. Timing still matters. No collection of tools replaces judgment, relationships, and the willingness to adapt when your plan meets reality, and reality wins the first 3 rounds before you adjust. That is the honest version of preparedness. Everything else is a product pitch dressed up in tactical vocabulary. What you can control is your toolkit and your skill base. The gadget industry wants you to believe that spending more money moves you closer to safety in a linear relationship. The math says otherwise. 8 tools under $200 total, maintained with basic mechanical knowledge, mastered through repetition. That beats $1,000 of sophisticated electronics that fail under physical stress and require infrastructure to operate. The infrastructure you are preparing for the absence of. Here is your choice right now. You can close this video and go back to browsing the next generation of survival multi-tools, searching for the one that finally solves everything with one purchase. Or you can open a new tab right now and price out the 8 items on this list: fixed blade full-tang knife, hand saw, hatchet, military entrenching tool, Ferro rod, single wall stainless bottle, Scandi-grind blade, waterproof notepad and pencil. Total the cost. Then compare it honestly to what you have spent on gear in the last 12 months. That number will either validate the decisions you have already made or it will be the most productive calculation of discomfort you have experienced this year. 99% of people watch something like this and go buy another gadget. 1% actually reconfigure their kit around tools that work. 0.1% practice with what they buy until the skill is automatic and the tool disappears into muscle memory. You know which category you have operated in. The only question is whether that is where you want to stay. Subscribe if you are part of the 0.1%. Drop a comment with the first tool from this list you are actually buying, not thinking about buying. I read everyone. Class dismissed.